All right, we got another video on thundering. Third time's the charm. Assuming this is probably going to be the last one, and I have to say it's quite good. So I'll read the post for you. It's very brief, but it says the thundering affix has received adjustments and bug fixes with a focus on addressing key feedback points. We're also experimenting with a rule change that we hope will allow all 5 players to participate each time thundering occurs. So really quickly, I'll go through all of this. The first iteration was just bad. It was just dumb, and it was basically just like soak 'em or don't like get hit by a mechanic and then dodge something else. That's completely scrapped. They went with a more like actual reality focused thing where people aren't going to be just hating it the whole time. A little bit more of a kiss curse. It's not very powerful. It's only 15% buff, but yeah, if you do it well, you can get a good little buff there. But in the previous video, we talked about why it was just a complete non-starter. Like it just could not be in the game. There was way too many flaws with it, and it really just didn't make any sense with the dungeon concept. Okay, well, they fixed that, and I'm gonna tell you what, I had a pretty, I would say like a pretty creative solution to this that I would still like to see, but I know that's not how it works. But I think that this is actually a better solution. I'm really shocked by it. They managed to actually solve all my problems with it in one fell swoop. Okay. So, yeah, basically the way it works is if you have somebody within 100 yards of you with the opposite buff and you don't clear yours, you get stunned. Otherwise, it does not stun you, meaning that while you're running back, you cannot be stunned. Now, as long as you don't get within 100 yards of somebody. 100 yards is not as long as it sounds. You know, your average gameplay length is 30 to 40 yards, so it would be like double, 2.5 times that, really. That's kind of far, but it's really not that far. But yeah, you absolutely can run back into your death with this stun, okay? But they also nerfed the stun. It is now only 4 seconds, used to be 8 seconds. So this is just great. And the cool thing about this is that it allows you to have 5 people, because before there could only be 4, and it would be like those 2 people in the duo would have to constantly match up, and that would be it. And it was almost never on the tank. So another completely absurd part of the previous version. Well, now everybody gets it. All 5 people get it. The 15% buff the whole time they get it. And as long as the 4, like 2 of the 2 matches match up, then the other person can keep the buff for the entire time without having to interact with it. Is that going to happen in practice? No, of course not. But it's still really, really good. And honestly, it feels like very much like the tank's role to just not deal with this, or maybe even the healer's role to just not deal with this and just let the DPS handle it. And then whoever is left, whatever happens here. So, like I said in the last episode of this, I very much likely am just going to be, a bystander in this effect. If somebody wants to run into me, they can. Otherwise, I will have at least 2 different ways to get rid of it, and heavily considering going human as well. But yeah, so they nerfed all parts of it. The damage from it is less now as well. And the fact that 5 people can get it is, I'll tell you what, this is, maybe too strong of words, but genius. Like, this is a really creative solution to this problem. I did not ever expect them to do this. A lot of people had like really advanced solutions, even in the comment section of that video. But sadly, it's not going to work that way. Like, they're not going to just completely redesign the affix from like the fundamental level of how it builds up in the dungeon. And it's just too late for that. They could design the actual interaction that we have with it obviously differently, but I think it's fine now. I really do. In fact, I think, I'd be interested in hearing any criticisms of it at this point. I'm not really sure what those criticisms would be. Like, I guess people still might want it to be more powerful. But other than like literally changing it, which is, again, I don't think that's on the table at this point, like making a different affix instead of what we have. Yeah, I don't think that's on the table, but reality is, I think it's quite good. I think it's pretty balanced. They actually managed to do what they said they were going to do. It's funny because week 1 it was like so wrong, and then week 2 it was like, are you joking? And now it's week 3. It's like, oh, it's perfect. It's kind of weird. And yeah, as long as it goes as I expect, yeah. Oh, and you could also immune them off now as well. I guess that wasn't possible before. I don't have an immunity. Somebody was like talking about me AMSing it. It doesn't actually get rid of it. It just prevents the stun. So I could AMS preemptively, and there's no detriment to anyone. It doesn't remove. Like I said that I was going to AMS it to prevent the stun, but the person thought I would be removing my own debuff. Now that apparently can be done now with immunities, but AMS cannot do that. But yeah, I guess Ice Block and Bubble can get rid of them. That doesn't seem like a good thing, but I don't know, to be honest. So yeah, regardless, I don't think it matters because even if there becomes a like an uneven number of people, you can still have no penalty to it. In fact, an uneven number of people would be ideal because then you never have to deal with it. Like if there's 5 out and 4 don't, like one gets immune, so then you have 4, you have what you normally have. And if 2 get immune, then you just have 3. So there's like really, unless, yeah, there's no pet. I can't think of any penalty to this affix. This is actually really good. It's really good. So at worst, you're going to have a little bit of movement. I think it's very fair. There'll probably be weak auras and add-ons that help time it out better, and maybe even weak auras that like interact with each other. So you and the other player might have some communication or something like that. I don't know, like in text boxes or something. But I actually think it's really good. So my new question is, what do you guys think is, what are your thoughts? I'd love to start hearing your thoughts on this, especially because now, I mean, 2 weeks in a row, I had some really big problems with it, and now I don't really have any problems with it at all. So. Well, I still do have the same problem I had previous, is that it's really hard to see, especially if you have a marker on your head. This is the thing that is just ridiculous. That people keep putting this stupid blue box on my head as a tank because they're like unable to see where my character is. Like that matters. And yeah, they block the buff. So I actually have to look at the debuff to have. It's a complete. I'm completely unaware that the buff is on me unless I look at the debuff. Now, of course, that's again going to be something that's solved with a weak ore, but I do think that we can do something there as, from the video game. Last week we talked about it as like, they're trying to make a fantasy game and a competitive game at the same time. Like a purely competitive game, it would be very, very, very obvious. You would have no, there wouldn't need to be any weird visual indication to it. It would just be perfunctory and you know it's on you. But in a fantasy game, you have to try to make it seem like, oh, look at this magical blue cloud debuff above my head, So it makes it a little bit harder to see. But I do think that unless all 5 people had marks on their head, it wouldn't be an issue. For me as a tank, it's just kind of annoying, but it's usually not like you have 5 people with marks on their head, because that would be the issue. If you can't see what other people have when you're looking at them and you have to actually target them or something like that, yeah, I don't know. We're really scraping the bottom of the barrel for for complaints on this affix now. So I'm very satisfied. I think it's going to be really, really good for Blood DK now, especially. It's even better than it was, especially if we end up going human. So let me know what you guys think and, what you might want to see from it still, because I'm usually, I'm satiated. I'm good here. So I think this is a really good affix now. And, we'll see how it fits the theme and what it does. There's probably still going to be some bosses that it's going to be a real pain on, but from when I did Halls of Valor, especially, super straightforward, no issues with that dungeon whatsoever. And I'm thinking that this is good to go. I think it's probably going to be the last version of it. So